I'm Margaret Sullivan, 68 years old, and I never imagined I'd be sitting across from my own daughter in a courtroom. Not like this. Lisa stared at me with cold eyes while her lawyer argued that she was entitled to a substantial portion of my grandson Noah's app fortune. The same grandson she abandoned 11 years ago because his autism was too much to handle. The same child I raised while she pursued her freedom. Now Noah's innovation had turned into a $3.2 million success story, and suddenly Lisa remembered she was his mother. Blood may be thicker than water, but sometimes it's just as cold. Before I dive into this heartbreaking family story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. This journey taught me so much about what real family loyalty means. If you've ever stood up for someone when others walked away, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories about family betrayal and the unexpected ways justice eventually finds its way home. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. I raised my daughter Lisa with all the love I could give. Her father, George, and I had what I thought was a happy home in suburban Minneapolis. George worked as an engineer, and I taught third grade at the local elementary school. We weren't wealthy, but we had enough. Lisa was our only child for 8 years before her brother James came along. Even as a child, Lisa had a stubborn streak that sometimes bordered on selfishness. But I always told myself it was just strong-willed independence. George passed away from a sudden heart attack when Lisa was in college. The loss hit our family hard, especially Lisa, who had always been Daddy's little girl. After that, she seemed to drift, dropping out of her business program and floating between jobs and relationships. I worried, but told myself she was just finding her way. When Lisa announced her pregnancy at 23, she was single. The father was a guy named Ryan she'd been dating for only a few months. He made it clear he wanted no part of fatherhood and disappeared from the picture before Noah was even born. I stood by Lisa, helped her prepare for the baby, and was there in the delivery room when my beautiful grandson entered the world. Noah was a peaceful baby with curious eyes that seemed to take in everything. For the first 2 years, Lisa tried to be a good mother. She moved back in with me to save money, and I helped with childcare while working part-time. I watched her rock him to sleep, sing to him, take endless photos of his first smile, first steps. But I also noticed that Noah didn't babble like other babies his age. He wouldn't respond to his name consistently. He became fixated on spinning the wheels of his toy cars for hours. When Noah was 3, a pediatrician referred us to a specialist, and the diagnosis came back: autism spectrum disorder. The doctor explained that Noah would need therapies, consistent routines, and specialized education approaches. I immediately bought books, joined support groups, and tried to learn everything I could about how to help my grandson. Lisa's reaction was different. At first, she seemed determined to fix him, jumping from one treatment to another. When progress was slow, frustration set in. She'd snap at Noah when he had meltdowns, becoming increasingly resentful of the demands of raising a special needs child. "This isn't what I signed up for, Mom," she'd say after particularly difficult days. "I'm 26. I should be traveling, dating, building a career, not spending hours in therapy waiting rooms." I tried to be supportive while gently reminding her that parenthood never goes exactly as planned for anyone. I took on more and more of Noah's care, scheduling his appointments, researching schools, learning how to help him through sensory overloads. I'd find Lisa going out more frequently, leaving Noah with me while she cleared her head. She'd come home late, sometimes smelling of alcohol, and sleep through Noah's morning routines. The tension between us grew. "You're enabling him," she'd accuse when I accommodated Noah's needs. "He needs to learn to be normal." She didn't understand that autism wasn't something to be cured, but a different way of experiencing the world. Lisa's brother James had moved to California after college. He called regularly and sent Noah birthday gifts, but the distance meant he wasn't involved in the day-to-day struggles. When he visited one Christmas, he pulled me aside after witnessing one of Lisa's outbursts toward Noah. "Mom, this isn't right," he said quietly. "Noah deserves better, and you're carrying too much of this load." But what could I do? She was my daughter, and Noah was my grandson. I believed families stuck together through challenges. I'd made that promise to myself after George died, so I kept picking up the slack, becoming more of a mother than a grandmother to Noah, while watching Lisa slip further away from her responsibilities. By Noah's 5th birthday, Lisa was barely participating in his care. She'd miss his therapy appointments, forget the exercises we were supposed to practice with him, and roll her eyes when I explained the importance of his routine. Meanwhile, I was noticing Noah's incredible memory for numbers and his fascination with patterns. He could recreate complex designs from memory and seemed to understand computer systems intuitively. These gifts went largely unnoticed by Lisa, who could only see what he couldn't do compared to neurotypical children. The collision course was set, though I didn't know it then. I was exhausted but determined. Lisa was restless and resentful, and Noah, sensitive soul that he was, absorbed the tensions around him while retreating further into his own world of numbers and patterns. The breaking point came shortly after Noah turned 5. He'd had a difficult day at his preschool program, overwhelmed by a fire drill that had sent him into a complete meltdown. The teacher had called Lisa to pick him up, but she was in a meeting for her new sales job and didn't answer. They called me next, and I left work immediately. When Lisa came home that evening, I tried to explain what had happened. Noah was finally sleeping after hours of distress. "They called you because I was working, Mom," she snapped. "I can't just drop everything every time he has a tantrum." "It wasn't a tantrum," I corrected her, trying to keep my voice calm. "The fire alarm triggered a sensory overload. You know loud noises are difficult for him." Lisa threw her purse on the kitchen counter. "Everything is difficult for him. And for me. I'm drowning here, and you just keep making excuses for him." "They're not excuses, they're explanations," I said. "Noah can't help how his brain processes information." "Well, I can't help that I need a life too," she shouted, loud enough that I worried she'd wake Noah. "I'm 28 years old, and I feel like my life is over. Being a parent means making sacrifices," I said, my patience wearing thin. "Your father and I don't start with the perfect parent routine," she interrupted. "You and Dad had each other. I'm alone with a kid who will probably never be independent, who freaks out if his sandwich is cut the wrong way." The argument escalated until Lisa stormed to her room, packed a suitcase, and announced she needed space. She claimed she'd stay with her friend Jenna for a few days to clear her head. I reluctantly agreed, hoping the break might actually help her gain perspective. "I'll be back once I figure some things out," she promised, kissing a confused Noah goodbye. "Be good for Grandma." Those few days turned into weeks. Her texts became sporadic. "Need more time, working things out, will call soon." When I finally reached her by phone after 3 weeks, she admitted she'd taken a job in Chicago. "I just need a fresh start," she said, her voice distant. "I can't be what Noah needs right now. You're better with him anyway." "Lisa, he's your son," I said, struggling to keep my composure. "He needs his mother." "He has you," she replied. "I'll send money when I can. I can't do this anymore, Mom. Maybe when he's older, when things are easier." But we both knew autism doesn't just disappear with age. The challenges change, but they don't vanish. I realized with a sinking heart that she was abandoning her child. I faced the devastating task of explaining to a 5-year-old with autism why his mother wasn't coming home. Noah's limited verbal skills made it even harder. He'd stand by the window, repeating, "Mama, come," until my heart felt like it would shatter. Legally, I needed to protect Noah. With help from a sympathetic attorney who reduced her fees, I filed for guardianship. Lisa didn't contest it, signing the paperwork I mailed to her new address without comment. The judge looked at me with both compassion and concern, a woman in her late 50s taking on the full-time care of a special needs child. "Are you sure about this, Mrs. Sullivan?" he asked kindly. "He's my grandson," I replied simply. "There's nothing to be unsure about." At first, Lisa called weekly, her conversations with Noah awkward and brief. She sent a Christmas gift that first year, a toy too young for his age that showed how little she knew about his development. By his 6th birthday, the calls had dwindled to monthly. The presents came later and later, then stopped altogether after he turned 7. I created a stable life for us. I took early retirement from teaching to care for Noah full-time, tightening our budget to make my pension and savings stretch. We established routines that helped him thrive. Visual schedules, sensory, friendly spaces in our home, regular therapy sessions. The financial strain was considerable. Specialized therapies, adaptive equipment, and sensory tools weren't cheap, and many weren't covered by insurance. My sister Eleanor criticized Lisa openly, but I discouraged such talk around Noah. She's still his mother, I'd insist, though my heart hardened a little more with each broken promise. James sent money when he could, flying in twice a year to spend time with his nephew. During one visit, he found me crying at the kitchen table after Noah was asleep. "Mom, you need to take care of yourself too," he said, alarmed at how thin and tired I'd become. "I'm fine," I insisted. "Noah needs me." "And what happens to Noah if you burn out completely?" he countered. His words scared me enough to join a support group for grandparents raising grandchildren. There I found others walking similar paths, many due to addiction or incarceration, a few because of special needs children being abandoned. Their understanding helped me process my anger at Lisa, my fears for the future, and my exhaustion. When Noah was 8, Lisa visited unexpectedly. She looked polished and successful in designer clothes, sporting an expensive haircut and engagement ring. Noah was confused and shy around her, hiding behind me. She brought an elaborate gift, a gaming system that overwhelmed his senses, and seemed hurt when he didn't react with the enthusiasm she expected. "He's different than I remembered," she said as we watched him retreat to his room. "No," I replied quietly. "You're the one who's different. He's been here all along." She left the next day, promising to visit more regularly. Another promise broken. The sporadic phone calls dwindled further. Her engagement ended, and she moved to Arizona, then Texas. Her life a series of fresh starts, while Noah and I remained rooted in the home where stability was essential to his well-being. By Noah's 10th birthday, Lisa had become almost a stranger to him, more concept than person. When he asked about her, which became increasingly rare, I answered truthfully but simply, "Your mom loves you but has trouble understanding how to be with you. It's not your fault." Whether I still believed the first part myself, I wasn't sure anymore. Raising a child with autism as a grandmother in my 60s presented challenges I never anticipated in my retirement years. Noah's autism manifested in ways that required constant adaptation. His sensory sensitivities meant that ordinary experiences could trigger overwhelming distress. The hum of fluorescent lights, the texture of certain foods, the unpredictability of crowds. He needed compression vests to help him feel secure, noise-canceling headphones for outings, and specific foods prepared in specific ways. Finding the right educational environment was a battle that consumed my energy for years. The local public school's special education program lacked the resources Noah needed. In one heartbreaking meeting, a teacher suggested he might be better suited to a more restrictive environment after he had a meltdown during an unscheduled fire drill. I refused to give up on inclusive education, becoming a fixture at IEP meetings where I advocated fiercely for appropriate accommodations. Mrs. Sullivan, the special education director, sighed during one particularly tense meeting. "We're doing our best with the resources we have." "Your best isn't good enough for Noah," I replied, clutching a binder of research articles and legal precedents I'd stayed up all night studying. "And it's not what the law requires." I finally found a charter school with a strong support program for children with autism when Noah was 8. The 40-minute drive each way was worth it to see him finally connecting with learning in a supportive environment. Social situations were another minefield. Noah was bullied in ways that broke my heart. Children could be cruel, but adults sometimes worse. A mother once pulled her child away from Noah at a park, loudly proclaiming he seemed weird. Another time, a man in a grocery store told me Noah needed discipline during a sensory overload that left him rocking and humming on the floor by the freezer section. "He needs understanding, not discipline," I informed him coldly, positioning myself between this stranger and my grandson. "Please move along." The financial realities were harsh. My teacher's pension wasn't designed to cover the expenses of raising a child, especially one with special needs. Specialized therapies, occupational, speech, behavioral, cost hundreds of dollars per session, with insurance covering only a fraction. Sensory equipment, educational materials, special diet requirements, and the gas for long drives to specialists all strained my budget to breaking point. I cashed in my modest investments, downsized my car, and took a part-time job grading papers online that I could do while Noah slept. I learned to cut corners wherever possible, sewing weighted blankets myself after watching YouTube tutorials, joining co-ops to trade therapy tools with other families, applying for every grant and assistance program available. My own health took a back seat. The arthritis in my knees worsened from the physical demands of caring for an active boy. I ignored the fatigue that seemed bone deep, the headaches that came from stress, and insufficient sleep. When my doctor expressed concern about my blood pressure, I waved it away as temporary. Noah needed me. There wasn't time to be sick. My social circle contracted dramatically. Friends from my teaching days gradually stopped calling when I couldn't join their retirement trips or evening get-togethers. Family members who didn't understand autism drifted away after uncomfortable holiday gatherings where Noah's behaviors didn't match their expectations of a normal child. "You're a saint," people would say when they learned I was raising my grandson alone. The comment always irritated me. I wasn't a saint, just a grandmother who refused to abandon a child who had already lost one parent. Besides, they didn't see my private moments of frustration, the times I locked myself in the bathroom to cry, the occasional glasses of wine I poured after particularly difficult days. Through it all, Noah continued to surprise me with his unique perspectives and abilities. He memorized train schedules from across the country, could tell you the precise weather patterns from any date in the past 5 years, and developed an encyclopedic knowledge of space exploration. His mind worked in fascinating ways that neurotypical brains didn't. By age 10, his special interests had consolidated around numbers, patterns, and increasingly, computers. His ability to identify patterns made him astonishingly good at troubleshooting technical problems. When my laptop broke down, he methodically worked through potential solutions until he fixed it, explaining his process in a way that made perfect sense despite his otherwise limited verbal communication. "Noah," I said, watching him resurrect my ancient laptop, "you have a gift with these machines." He didn't look up, but a small smile crossed his face. Recognition of his talents meant everything to him. I worried constantly about what would happen to Noah after I was gone. I had no substantial savings left to provide for his future care. Lisa's absence meant there was no clear guardian to take over. James loved his nephew, but had been honest about his limitations in providing the structured environment Noah needed. I researched group homes and supported living programs, but the waiting lists spanned years, and many didn't offer the level of support Noah might require. This fear kept me awake at night more than any other. I forced myself to stay as healthy as possible, to be there for Noah as long as he needed me. I couldn't let myself consider the alternative. Through all these challenges, I watched Noah grow from a withdrawn child into a thoughtful, if socially awkward, preteen with remarkable gifts. The journey was exhausting, financially draining, and sometimes desperately lonely. But when Noah would tentatively reach for my hand during an anxious moment, or share one of his fascinating observations about patterns most people never noticed, I knew I would face it all again without hesitation. Noah's discovery of coding happened almost by accident. His 5th-grade teacher, Mr. Wilson, noticed how Noah could remember complex number sequences and recognized patterns that escaped others. During the computer lab hour, while other students played educational games, Noah became fascinated by how the programs worked rather than the games themselves. "Mrs. Sullivan, Mr. Wilson called me after school one day. I think Noah might have an aptitude for programming. Have you ever considered introducing him to coding?" I hadn't. My knowledge of computers was limited to basic word processing and email. But I trusted Mr. Wilson, one of the few teachers who saw beyond Noah's challenges to his potential. The school had a small coding club that met after classes on Tuesdays. Noah was reluctant at first. New environments were always challenging for him, but Mr. Wilson offered to let him observe from the back of the room until he felt comfortable participating. To my surprise, by the 3rd session, Noah was fully engaged. He absorbed the basic concepts with remarkable speed, his mind seemingly wired for the logical structures of programming languages. The predictable rules and immediate feedback suited his thinking perfectly. When code worked, it worked. When it didn't, there was always a logical reason why. No social nuances or unwritten rules to navigate. "It makes sense, Grandma," he explained in one of his more verbose moments. Computers don't change the rules suddenly. I watched my savings account dwindle further as I scraped together $600 for a refurbished laptop. It was worth every penny to see Noah's face light up. He spent hours on free coding tutorials online, progressing through lessons meant for students years older than him. Noah's coding abilities developed at an astonishing pace. By 11, he was creating simple games and tools that showcased his unique perspective. One program he developed calculated prime numbers while displaying them in colorful visual patterns that corresponded to musical notes, a reflection of how his mind processed mathematical relationships synesthetically. I struggled to understand what he was creating, my knowledge far outpaced by his growing expertise. I took a community college course in basic programming just to be able to follow his excited explanations. Though the concepts often went over my head, I recognized the passion in his voice, the confidence that emerged when he talked about his projects. You know, I'm in this room listening to you all talk about the latest coding developments, and I feel 100 years old, I confessed to the group of parents, grandparents, and kids at a local tech meetup we'd started attending. Age is irrelevant in technology, Margaret, replied Ravi, a software engineer whose daughter was also in the coding club. What matters is curiosity and willingness to learn. Noah has both in spades. Ravi became one of Noah's first mentors, volunteering time on weekends to guide him through more advanced concepts. Other members of the local tech community soon took interest in this quiet, intense boy with remarkable pattern recognition abilities. A small network formed around Noah, professionals who recognized his talent and offered resources we could never have afforded otherwise. When Noah turned 13, these mentors helped him secure a scholarship to an intensive summer coding camp. It meant 2 weeks away from home, his first significant time away from me and our structured environment. We prepared meticulously, practicing social scenarios, creating visual schedules, packing familiar items for comfort. I worried constantly, calling the camp counselors daily for updates. Noah returned transformed. He'd connected with peers who shared his interests and instructors who challenged his growing skills. His confidence had blossomed in ways I hadn't thought possible. Though still socially awkward, he'd found a community where his differences weren't just accepted but valued. "They get me there, Grandma," he said simply. "No one thinks I'm weird. I'm sitting here watching you all engage with this story, and it reminds me of how Noah found his tribe in the coding community. Sometimes the people who truly understand us aren't who we expect. If you've ever found acceptance in an unexpected place, drop a comment below. And if you're enjoying this journey, please hit that like button to help others find this story too. Now, let me tell you about what happened next. Over the following year, Noah's focus narrowed to mobile application development. He became fascinated by the idea of creating tools that could help people navigate daily challenges. I watched him fill notebooks with interface designs and function flowcharts, his handwriting messy but his ideas crystal clear. "What if I could make something that helps people like me?" he asked one evening, looking up from his computer. "Something that makes the world easier to understand?" "I think that would be wonderful," I replied, my heart swelling with pride at his desire to help others. With guidance from his mentors, Noah began developing simple prototype apps. One helped users organize tasks with visual cues rather than just text. Another provided crowdsourced sensory ratings for public places, warning users about loud environments or bright lighting. His projects reflected his lived experience, addressing needs that mainstream developers often overlooked. As his skills grew, so did his confidence in navigating the world. Though still struggling with many aspects of social interaction, he found his voice when discussing technology. In those contexts, he communicated with clarity and purpose that surprised those who only saw his challenges. By 15, Noah had outgrown the guidance his local mentors could provide. Ravi connected him with online communities of developers, where age and social differences mattered less than the quality of one's code. Noah thrived in these spaces, contributing to open-source projects and building a reputation for elegant solutions to complex problems. "Your grandson has a unique perspective that makes his code different," Ravi told me over coffee one day. "He sees patterns and efficiencies that others miss. That's valuable in this industry." I nodded, thinking of the countless hours I'd spent advocating for Noah, fighting for accommodations, explaining his differences to people who saw only his limitations. In this new world, those very differences were becoming his greatest strength. The journey wasn't always smooth. Noah still had meltdowns when overwhelmed, still struggled with unexpected changes to routine, still needed substantial support in many areas of life. But he'd found his path, one that honored his unique way of thinking rather than trying to force him into neurotypical patterns. As I watched him grow and develop, I couldn't help wondering what Lisa would think of her son now. Would she recognize the gentle, brilliant young man he was becoming? Would she regret missing these transformative years? Or would she still see only the challenges, the ways he didn't fit conventional expectations? I pushed these thoughts aside. Lisa had made her choice. Noah and I had built our life together, and his growing passion for coding was opening doors neither of us had imagined possible. Whatever the future held, I knew he was finding his way in the world, one line of code at a time. Noah's breakthrough idea came during a particularly difficult outing to the mall. We needed new shoes for his growing feet. But the sensory overload of the crowded shopping center, the echoing noise, fluorescent lights, and press of strangers quickly became too much. Noah was stimming heavily, rocking and covering his ears as anxiety overwhelmed him. A woman nearby shot us a disapproving look, clearly misinterpreting his behavior as a tantrum. It was a scenario we'd experienced countless times before. That evening, still processing the day's stress, Noah opened his laptop and began typing furiously. "What if there was an app," he explained, words tumbling out faster than usual, "that could help people understand what's happening during sensory overload? Something that explains autism to people who don't get it and helps autistic people navigate hard situations." Over the next few weeks, his concept evolved into something more comprehensive, an application that would serve as both a communication tool for autistic individuals and an educational resource for the neurotypical world. He called it Neuro Navigator. The app would include features like a customizable communication card system for nonverbal moments, sensory mapping of public spaces with user ratings, social script generators for unfamiliar situations, and emergency management tools for meltdowns. Most innovative was the Perspective Translator, a feature that would explain social situations from both neurotypical and autistic viewpoints to bridge understanding. Noah worked obsessively, spending every free moment sketching interfaces and mapping functions. I worried about his intense focus, ensuring he still ate, slept, and maintained his schoolwork, but I recognized this project was different from his previous interests. This wasn't just about code, it was about creating something that reflected his lived experience. By 16, Noah had a working prototype, but needed help with aspects beyond his expertise. Ravi connected us with a small business incubator that offered resources to young entrepreneurs. Their initial skepticism about both Noah's age and his autism quickly dissolved when they saw his prototype and understood the gap in the market he was addressing. "There are millions of people on the autism spectrum," explained Darren Lee, one of the incubator advisors, "and millions more who interact with them, daily family members, educators, employers. If this app can improve those interactions even slightly, it's solving a significant problem." The incubator provided Noah with a small grant and paired him with Jessica, a UX designer who specialized in accessible interfaces. She was initially hesitant about working with a teenage developer, especially one with communication differences, but their first meeting changed everything. "Your grandson explained complex user flows better than most senior developers I've worked with," she told me afterward. "He sees the entire system at once, like a bird's-eye view." Not everyone was as immediately supportive. Several potential investors passed after meeting Noah, uncomfortable with his direct communication style and concerned about his ability to lead a business. Others wanted to take his concept but replace him with professional developers. I watched the rejection hurt him, though he processed it differently than most might. "They don't understand the problem like I do," he stated, matter-of-factly. "We'll find people who get it." And we did. A small angel investment came from the parent of an autistic child who immediately saw the value in Neuro Navigator. This was followed by a grant from an organization supporting assistive technology. These funds allowed Noah to build a small team: Jessica on design, a back-end developer named Marcus, and Zoe, a marketing specialist whose brother was on the spectrum. The development process wasn't without challenges. Noah's insistence on perfectionism sometimes created delays. His difficulty articulating certain concepts led to misunderstandings with team members. There were nights I found him overwhelmed and shut down, the pressure of transforming his vision into reality, proving too much. "Maybe I can't do this," he confessed during one particularly difficult moment. "You can," I assured him, "but you don't have to do it alone. That's why you have a team." With coaching from Ravi, Noah learned to leverage his strengths while accepting support in areas of challenge. The team adapted their work processes to accommodate his needs. Written communication instead of lengthy meetings, clear directives rather than open-ended questions, scheduled breaks during intense work sessions. Beta testing began with a small group of autistic teens and their families. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with users reporting that the app provided solutions they'd been seeking for years. More importantly, they offered suggestions from their own experiences that improved the app's functionality in ways Noah hadn't anticipated. "This is why I wanted to make this," Noah said, reviewing the feedback with rare animation in his voice. "Everyone's autism is different. We need all these perspectives." As launch day approached, Noah's anxiety increased. The app had evolved from a personal project into something much bigger, with real users depending on its functionality. The night before launch, I found him meticulously checking every function, every screen transition. "What if it doesn't work for everyone?" he worried. "It won't," I said gently. "No solution works for everyone, but it will help many people, and you'll keep improving it based on what you learn." Neuro Navigator launched with little fanfare, a simple announcement on autism, community forums, and social media groups. We expected a few hundred downloads in the first week. By day's end, there were over 3,000. Users from across the country and beyond were discovering the app, using it, and sharing it within their communities. Reviews highlighted features that made daily life more navigable for autistic individuals and provided neurotypical people with insights they'd never had access to before. A father wrote about using the sensory map feature to find a quiet restaurant where his daughter could eat comfortably for the first time. A teacher described how the perspective translator helped her understand a student's seemingly oppositional behavior. An autistic adult explained how the communication cards had helped them navigate a medical emergency when stress rendered them temporarily nonverbal. Noah read every review, every suggestion, every bug report, implementing improvements with remarkable speed. What had begun as a personal solution was becoming a valuable tool for an entire community that had been underserved by mainstream technology. As downloads climbed and user engagement deepened, larger investors began to take notice. The app that had been rejected by many was suddenly the object of interest from venture capital firms specializing in assistive technology and social impact. 6 months after launch, Noah received an offer that changed everything. $3.2 million in Series A funding to expand Neuro Navigator's capabilities and reach. The investors valued the company's authentic connection to the autism community and, most importantly, wanted Noah to remain at the helm with appropriate support structures in place. The quiet, awkward boy who had been abandoned by his mother at age 5 was now, at 17, the founder and CEO of a rapidly growing technology company valued at millions. The journey had been longer and harder than either of us could have imagined, but watching Noah sign those investment papers, his careful, precise signature on documents that recognized the value of his unique mind, I felt a sense of vindication that almost overwhelmed me. What neither of us knew was that news of Neuro Navigator's success was about to travel far beyond the autism community, reaching someone who had shown no interest in Noah's journey until money entered the equation. Neuro Navigator's success story spread rapidly through the tech world. What began as a grassroots phenomenon within the autism community caught the attention of mainstream technology publications. TechCrunch ran a feature titled Teen Developer with Autism Creates Revolutionary Accessibility App. Wired followed with an in-depth piece about how Noah's neurodivergent perspective informed his innovative approach to user interface design. The publicity brought a flood of new users. Downloads jumped from thousands to hundreds of thousands within weeks. Support emails poured in from around the world. Parents, educators, therapists, and autistic individuals sharing how the app had improved their daily lives. "I never thought technology would understand me better than people do," wrote one user. "For the first time, I feel like someone gets how my mind works." The sudden attention was overwhelming for Noah. He'd created the app to solve problems, not to become a public figure. Interview requests arrived daily. Conference organizers wanted him as a keynote speaker. Autism advocacy organizations sought his endorsement for their programs. "I don't want to talk to all these people," he told me, anxiety evident in his rapid stimming. "I just want to make the app better." We established careful boundaries. Noah would do limited interviews by email only. Public appearances were declined with polite explanations about his sensory sensitivities. I became the public-facing representative when necessary, carefully guarding his privacy and energy. "Your grandson could be the face of autism entrepreneurship," one particularly aggressive journalist suggested. "Noah is a developer, not a mascot," I replied firmly. "His work speaks for itself." As the app's success grew, so did the company. The initial team expanded to include developers specialized in accessibility, content creators from the autism community, and business operations staff. Noah insisted on inclusive hiring practices, bringing on board other neurodivergent professionals who understood the mission from lived experience. Venture capitalists, who had previously dismissed him, now pursued investment opportunities aggressively. Some seemed genuinely interested in the technology and mission. Others clearly saw only dollar signs. I helped Noah navigate these waters, drawing on business knowledge I'd picked up from years of handling our household finances on a tight budget. With the $3.2 million in funding secured, NeuroNavigator moved into proper office space, designed with sensory considerations as a priority. Low-stimulus work areas, natural lighting, noise reduction features, and flexible scheduling accommodated diverse neurological needs. The environment became a physical manifestation of the app's philosophy. Spaces could be designed to work for everyone, not just neurotypical individuals. Noah continued living with me, preferring the stability of our home to the upheaval of moving. Our financial situation transformed overnight. The years of scraping by on my pension, of counting pennies for therapy sessions, of wearing secondhand clothes, they ended abruptly. We paid off our modest mortgage. I finally addressed the health issues I'd been ignoring, getting the knee replacement surgery I'd postponed for years. Yet Noah remained remarkably unchanged by wealth. His interests and routines stayed consistent. His main indulgence was upgrading his computer equipment and creating a perfectly optimized workspace in his bedroom. When I suggested buying him new clothes at expensive stores, he declined. "These are comfortable," he said, indicating his familiar worn jeans and plain t-shirts. "Why would I need different ones?" We established trusts and financial safeguards. Noah's condition meant he might always need some level of support managing practical aspects of life, and I wanted to ensure his newfound wealth would protect rather than complicate his future. With professional guidance, we created structures that would support his independence while providing necessary oversight. The autism community embraced Noah's success as a collective victory. Here was proof that autistic individuals could not only function but innovate when their differences were accommodated rather than pathologized. Parents shared how Noah's story gave them hope for their children's futures. Autistic adults expressed validation in seeing someone like them recognized for their unique cognitive approaches rather than despite them. Noah found this aspect of his success most meaningful. Though uncomfortable with personal attention, he deeply valued knowing his work was changing perceptions. He began allocating company resources to expand the app's capabilities based on community feedback, adding features for minimally verbal users, sensory processing disorder, and co-occurring conditions. Throughout this whirlwind period of growth and recognition, I occasionally caught myself wondering if Lisa knew what was happening. Had she seen the articles? Did she realize the child she dismissed as too difficult to raise was now being hailed as a visionary in technology circles? I never mentioned these thoughts to Noah, who rarely spoke of his mother anymore. 8 months after securing funding, Noah received the Innovation in Accessibility Award at a major technology conference. Though he couldn't attend in person, he prepared a video acceptance speech. Brief, direct, and powerful. "I made NeuroNavigator because the world isn't designed for minds like mine," he said. "Technology should bridge differences, not reinforce them. This is just the beginning." The video went viral, amplifying NeuroNavigator's profile further. Companies reached out about potential partnerships. Educational institutions requested customized versions for schools. Government agencies inquired about accessibility compliance tools. Noah and his team methodically evaluated each opportunity against their core mission, creating technology that made the world more accessible for neurodivergent individuals. They turned down lucrative offers that didn't align with this purpose, sometimes to the dismay of their investors. We could expand faster if we diversified, suggested one board member during a particularly tense meeting. We succeed because we stay focused, Noah countered. His direct communication style, leaving no room for debate. Users trust us because we understand their needs better than anyone else. His conviction usually won these arguments. The app's continued growth and profitability made it difficult to argue with his approach. As Noah's 18th birthday approached, we planned a small celebration, just his core team and a few close supporters who had been part of our journey. It was during preparations for this event that the notification arrived. A LinkedIn connection request from Lisa Sullivan, followed by an email expressing her pride in his accomplishments and her desire to reconnect. After 11 years of near-total absence, Noah's mother had suddenly remembered she had a son. The timing, coinciding precisely with his public success and newfound wealth, struck me as far too convenient to be coincidental. "Noah," I said carefully, showing him the message, "your mother has reached out. This is entirely your decision on how or whether to respond." He stared at the screen for a long moment, his expression unreadable to most, but I had years of experience interpreting the subtle signs of his emotional processing. "Why now?" he finally asked, the question piercing in its simplicity. It was the same question echoing in my mind, along with a sinking feeling that I already knew the answer. Lisa's email sat unanswered for 3 weeks. Noah needed time to process this unexpected contact, and I respected his methodical approach to emotional decisions. He researched past cases of estranged parents reconnecting with successful children, creating spreadsheets of scenarios and outcomes with his characteristic analytical approach. "What do you want to do?" I finally asked one evening. "I want to understand why she left," he replied, "and why she's coming back now." Noah composed a brief, straightforward response. "I am willing to meet once to discuss your absence and current intentions." Lisa's reply came within minutes, full of effusive expressions of missed opportunities and maternal longing. She suggested meeting at our home, where she could see how he'd grown up. I bristled at her presumption, but kept my feelings to myself. This was Noah's decision. The day of the meeting, Noah prepared meticulously, arranging his environment, reviewing potential conversation topics, setting a timer to ensure the meeting wouldn't extend beyond his comfort level. I offered to be present or absent, whichever would make him most comfortable. "Stay," he said simply. "You're my constant." Lisa arrived 20 minutes late, full of apologies about traffic. The woman who walked through our door was expensively dressed, her appearance polished and confident, but with a brittleness beneath the surface. Beside her stood a man she introduced as Derek, her husband of 3 years. "Noah," she breathed, moving as if to embrace him. Noah stepped back, maintaining his personal space. I recognized his self-regulation techniques as he processed the sensory and emotional inputs of this encounter. "Hello," he said formally. "You can sit there." He indicated the chairs we had positioned at a comfortable distance. Lisa's smile faltered slightly at his direct approach, but she complied. Derek sat beside her, hand protectively on her arm. I noticed his expensive watch, the tailored quality of his clothes, markers of affluence that seemed calculated to impress. "You've grown so much," Lisa began awkwardly. "I've been following your success. That app you created, it's incredible." "Neuro Navigator," Noah corrected. "When did you start following my work?" The directness of his question caught her off guard. "Well, I saw an article a few months ago, in TechCrunch, I think." I couldn't believe my little boy had accomplished so much. Noah nodded, absorbing this information. "The first article appeared 8 months ago. You've been absent for 11 years, 2 months, and 14 days. Lisa flinched at the precision of his accounting. "I know I've made mistakes, Noah. Terrible mistakes. I wasn't ready to be a mother, especially to a child with special needs. I was young and selfish." "You were 28 when you left," Noah stated factually. "The average age of first-time mothers in the United States is 26.3. Derek cleared his throat. "What Lisa is trying to say is that she regrets her choices and wants to make amends. People deserve second chances, right? I watched Noah process this intervention, his fingers tapping lightly on his knee, a self-soothing behavior I recognized. "Why now?" he asked, repeating the essential question. "Because I'm ready now," Lisa said, leaning forward earnestly. "I've grown up. I've dealt with my own issues. Seeing your success made me realize how much I've missed, how proud I am of you." The conversation continued with Lisa sharing details of her life since leaving. Her career in pharmaceutical sales, meeting Derek, a financial advisor, their home in Phoenix. She asked surface-level questions about Noah's development and interests, though her attention noticeably sharpened when the discussion touched on NeuroNavigator's financial success. "Derek has some experience with startups," she mentioned casually. "He could look over your contracts, make sure you're protected. Family looking out for family, you know?" Noah's timer chimed, signaling the end of the allocated meeting time. "I need to process this information," he said, standing abruptly. "Thank you for coming." Lisa seemed startled by the sudden conclusion, but recovered quickly. "Of course, honey. Take all the time you need. We're staying at the Marriott downtown for the next week. I hope we can see you again before we leave." After they departed, Noah retreated to his room for decompression time, a necessity after emotionally taxing interactions. When he emerged hours later, he sat across from me at the kitchen table. "She's interested in my money," he stated flatly. I sighed, unsurprised by his perception. "What makes you think that?" She appeared after the TechCrunch article mentioned the valuation. She brought a financial advisor who offered services without being asked. She used family as justification for involvement. These are common patterns in financial exploitation cases I researched. His assessment matched my own suspicions, but I tried to remain neutral. Those observations could suggest that interpretation. "What do you want to do next?" "More information would improve decision accuracy," he replied in his methodical way. Over the next few days, Noah agreed to 2 more brief meetings with Lisa and Derek. Each followed a similar pattern, Lisa expressing regret without specific acknowledgement of the harm caused, Derek inserting himself into discussions of NeuroNavigator's business model, both of them pressing for more involved reconnection on an accelerated timeline. During their third visit, Derek casually mentioned his own experience with a family business dispute that had taught him the importance of keeping business in the family. "Your mother should have some oversight of your company," he suggested smoothly, "not just for her benefit, but to protect you. You're still very young, and autism can make certain business decisions challenging." I watched Noah's expression harden at this condescending assessment of his capabilities. "I've managed without her input for 11 years, he replied. After they left, I made a decision. Noah needed objective information to make his assessment, and my protective instincts were in overdrive. I hired a private investigator, an expense that would have been unthinkable before NeuroNavigator's success, but now seemed a necessary precaution. The investigator's report arrived 3 days later. Lisa and Derek were facing significant financial difficulties. Their Phoenix home was in pre-foreclosure. Derek's investment firm had been sanctioned for ethical violations. They had filed for bankruptcy protection 8 months earlier, precisely when they would have seen the first articles about Noah's success. I presented the information to Noah without commentary, letting him draw his own conclusions. He processed it with characteristic thoroughness, adding the new data points to his analysis. The next day, Lisa called with an unexpected proposal. She wanted to discuss making things right through a formal family support arrangement. Noah should meet with their lawyer to discuss appropriate financial recognition of the maternal relationship. When Noah declined this arrangement, Lisa's tone changed dramatically. "I'm still your mother, Noah," she said, her voice hardening. "I have rights. I gave birth to you. I could have given you up for adoption, but I didn't. I made sure you were with family." Noah was silent for a long moment before responding. "You did give me up. You just didn't file the paperwork." The call ended with Lisa's ultimatum. Either Noah would agree to financial support for his mother, or she would pursue legal action to claim what she believed she was entitled to as his parent. That evening, Noah sat with his laptop, methodically researching parental rights, abandonment laws, and financial obligations to estranged parents. I watched him process this betrayal with a mixture of logical analysis and emotional hurt that broke my heart. "She doesn't want me," he finally said, looking up from his screen. She wants what I've built. I couldn't disagree. The timing and nature of Lisa's return left little room for other interpretations. My daughter, who had walked away from her child when he needed her most, had returned solely to claim a share of his success. 3 days later, a formal legal notice arrived from Lisa's attorney, claiming parental rights and seeking financial compensation for Lisa's contribution to Noah's development and success. The lawsuit alleged that I had alienated Noah from his mother, preventing a relationship that would have been beneficial to his development. Noah read the legal document with remarkable composure, though I could see the hurt beneath his controlled expression. The child who had stood by the window for months asking when his mother would return was now a young man facing her attempt to claim credit for success she'd played no part in creating. "We need our own lawyer," he said practically. "Someone who specializes in both family law and intellectual property." As we began preparing our legal response, I struggled with a storm of emotions: rage at Lisa's audacity, fear of the court proceedings ahead, and deep sadness that Noah had to experience this betrayal just as his life was opening up with new possibilities. The lawsuit landed like a bomb in our carefully constructed life. Lisa's legal filing was breathtaking in its revisionist history, portraying her as a loving mother who had temporarily stepped back to allow me to assist with Noah's autism needs, only to be systematically excluded from his life. It claimed she had made repeated attempts to maintain contact that I had thwarted, causing irreparable harm to the maternal bond and significant emotional damage to Noah. Most egregiously, it suggested that Noah's autism made him incapable of making sound financial decisions without parental guidance, and that Lisa was entitled to both oversight of Neuronavigator and retroactive financial support for the maternal contribution to his development. Finding the right attorney was crucial. Through Neuronavigator's legal team, we connected with Eleanor Michaels, a formidable lawyer who specialized in both family law and cases involving neurodivergent individuals. At our first meeting, she spoke directly to Noah rather than through me, immediately earning his trust. "This case has no merit," Eleanor stated, after reviewing the documents. "But that doesn't mean it won't be painful. Are you prepared for that, Noah?" He considered the question with characteristic thoroughness. "I can endure temporary discomfort to protect my long-term independence and the company's mission." "Good," Eleanor nodded. "Because your mother's team will likely try to use your autism against you, portraying you as incapable of managing your affairs without parental oversight." "I've been managing without her for 11 years, Noah replied, echoing his earlier statement to Derek. Our legal strategy took shape. Document the abandonment through school records, medical files, and financial statements showing I had been Noah's sole support. Demonstrate Noah's competence through his business success and the sophisticated structures already in place to support his executive functioning. Counter Lisa's claims of attempted contact with phone records showing the sparse, dwindling communication over the years. The case quickly attracted media attention, with headlines framing it as a tech prodigy custody battle despite Noah being legally an adult. Some outlets painted Lisa sympathetically, as a mother seeking reconciliation with her successful son. Others questioned the timing of her renewed interest in maternal rights. The publicity was excruciating for Noah, who valued his privacy and found the public dissection of his family history overwhelming. Online comment sections debated our situation with cruel speculation. Some questioned whether someone with autism should control a multi-million-dollar company. Others suggested I had manipulated Noah for financial gain. People are making conclusions without adequate data, Noah observed, scrolling through comments one evening despite my suggestion to avoid them. That's unfortunately common, I sighed. Try not to let it affect you. I'm not, he replied. Their opinions are statistically irrelevant to the legal outcome. His practical perspective often surprised me. While I agonized over public perception, Noah remained focused on the factual strength of our case. The autism community rallied around us. Support flooded in from parents, advocates, and autistic adults who recognized the dangerous precedent Lisa's case could set regarding the autonomy of neurodivergent individuals. Several prominent organizations filed amicus briefs supporting Noah's right to independence. Our first court appearance was for a preliminary hearing. Noah prepared meticulously, working with Eleanor to understand the process and practicing coping strategies for the sensory challenges of the courtroom. He requested and received reasonable accommodations. Breaks at regular intervals, permission to use noise, canceling headphones when not actively participating, and the option to provide written responses to supplement verbal testimony. Lisa arrived immaculately dressed, projecting maternal concern. Her attorney, Martin Wells, was known for high-conflict family cases and aggressive tactics. Derek sat behind them, his financial interest in the proceedings barely concealed. Wells opened with a portrait of Lisa as a young, overwhelmed mother who had made the selfless choice to let her child be raised by his grandmother while she established financial security. She never abandoned her son, he insisted. She made a difficult choice that she believed was in his best interest, always intending to reunite when circumstances allowed. Eleanor's cross-examination meticulously dismantled this narrative. Phone records showed years with no contact attempts. Financial records revealed not a single child support payment. School documentation indicated Lisa had removed herself as an emergency contact when Noah was 7. Most damaging was the guardianship paperwork Lisa had signed without contest, containing her explicit statement that she was unable to provide the specialized care Noah's condition requires, and her desire to relinquish parental responsibilities to me. "Miss Sullivan," Eleanor asked, "if you were establishing financial security to eventually reunite with your son, can you explain why you made no financial contribution to his care for 11 years? Lisa shifted uncomfortably. "I was barely making ends meet myself. Mom seemed to be handling it fine. "And when did you first learn about Noah's company, Neuronavigator?" "I don't remember exactly," Lisa hedged. "I try to keep up with autism news since my son. Would it refresh your memory to know that your first attempt to contact Noah in 3 years came exactly 2 weeks after TechCrunch published an article mentioning the company's $3.2 million valuation?" The judge's expression tightened at this timeline. As the proceedings continued, Wells shifted tactics, focusing on Noah's autism as a justification for parental oversight. He called an expert witness, a psychologist who had never met Noah, but testified about the general executive functioning challenges associated with autism spectrum disorders. Individuals with ASD typically struggle with financial planning and complex business decisions, he stated with clinical detachment. Parental guidance would be advisable for someone in Mr. Sullivan's position. Eleanor's cross-examination was surgical. "Doctor, are you familiar with the concept of neurodiversity?" "Generally, yes. And are you aware that autistic individuals often excel in pattern recognition, systematic thinking, and analytical processing, skills highly valuable in technology development and business? Some may have those strengths, yes, but are you familiar with Noah Sullivan's specific cognitive profile?" "No, I haven't evaluated him personally." "So you're testifying about hypothetical challenges without any direct knowledge of his actual capabilities?" The doctor's credibility crumbled under this questioning. When Noah took the stand, he was visibly anxious but determined. He stimmed subtly, a pencil moving rhythmically between his fingers. A coping mechanism the judge had been briefed to expect and understand. Wells attempted to portray him as naive and easily manipulated. "Mr. Sullivan, don't you think having a mother's guidance would have been beneficial during your formative years?" Noah considered this carefully. Statistically, involved parents improve developmental outcomes. However, inconsistent parenting is correlated with negative psychological impacts. "My mother's pattern of engagement was sporadic and unreliable, which data suggests is more harmful than complete absence." His precise, evidence-based responses frustrated Wells, who repeatedly tried to provoke an emotional reaction. Noah remained factual and composed, his literal interpretation of questions often highlighting the attorney's manipulative tactics. "Wouldn't you agree that your mother deserves some credit for your success?" Wells pressed. "Credit should be allocated based on measurable contribution," Noah replied. "My grandmother provided 97.3% of my care, education, and emotional support. My development as a programmer occurred entirely during her guardianship. The data doesn't support crediting my mother." The courtroom fell silent at this clinical yet devastating assessment. When my turn came to testify, I struggled to maintain Noah's composure. I described the years of raising him alone, the therapies I researched and coordinated, the schools I advocated in, The nights I held him through sensory overloads while Lisa built her new life elsewhere. Mrs. Sullivan, Wells asked during cross-examination, "Isn't it true that you resented your daughter for leaving you with the burden of raising a special needs child?" I met his gaze steadily. I never viewed Noah as a burden. I viewed him as a child who deserved consistency, understanding, and unconditional love. My resentment was not about having to raise him. It was about watching him wait by the window for a mother who never came. As the trial progressed, Lisa's testimony grew increasingly contradictory. She couldn't explain why. If she had always intended to reunite with Noah, she had made no preparations to accommodate his needs in her life. She had no knowledge of his educational history, medical treatments, or developmental milestones. When asked about his current accommodations, she mentioned special education, though Noah had graduated from mainstream schooling 2 years earlier. The turning point came when Eleanor presented evidence of Lisa and Derek's bankruptcy filing, dated exactly 7 weeks before their first contact attempt. Their financial desperation undermined any claim of altruistic maternal concern. In the final days of the trial, Noah requested permission to submit a written statement to the court. The judge granted this accommodation, recognizing that the emotional nature of closing arguments might make verbal testimony particularly challenging for him. His statement was characteristically direct. "My mother claims she wants to reconnect with me, but has made no effort to understand autism or my specific needs. She claims parental rights, but has fulfilled no parental responsibilities. She claims concern for my well-being, but is causing significant distress through this litigation. The evidence suggests her motivation is financial access rather than relationship restoration. I request the court recognize my autonomy as a competent adult and deny her claims." After 2 grueling weeks, we awaited the judge's ruling. Noah processed the stress by diving deeper into work, releasing a major update to NeuroNavigator that expanded its language options for global users. I alternated between fierce hope and crushing anxiety, wondering if the legal system would recognize the reality of our family's journey. The verdict, when it came, was unequivocal. The judge denied all of Lisa's claims, citing overwhelming evidence of abandonment and transparent financial motivation. He specifically noted that Noah had demonstrated exceptional competence in managing both his personal affairs and business interests, and that any intervention would constitute an unjustified restriction of his adult autonomy. Most significantly, the ruling included a statement addressing the broader implications. This court rejects any presumption that neurodivergent individuals require neurotypical oversight of their affairs. Mr. Scott, Sullivan's autism may inform his approach to business and personal decisions, but the evidence demonstrates this different perspective has led to innovation rather than limitation. Lisa's attorney immediately announced their intention to appeal, but Eleanor assured us the grounds were weak. As we left the courthouse, reporters called out questions about the ruling and its impact on NeuroNavigator. Noah, overwhelmed by the sensory assault of cameras and shouted questions, simply stated, "The legal system worked as designed. Truth prevailed over fiction." In the quiet of our car afterward, he added something that broke my heart with its simple clarity. "She never wanted to know me, just what I built." I couldn't disagree. Throughout the entire ordeal, Lisa had never once asked about Noah's interests, his perspective, or his experience of the world. She had seen only the success, never the person behind it. The appeal process would continue for months, but the immediate threat had passed. Noah could return to focusing on NeuroNavigator's mission without the shadow of Lisa's claims hanging over him. Yet the emotional aftermath of such public rejection by his mother would take longer to process, another abandonment to reconcile. This one perhaps more painful for happening in the full view of the world. The appeals court unanimously upheld the original ruling 6 months later. Lisa's final legal avenue had been exhausted, and with it, any legitimate claim to Noah's success. The definitive conclusion brought relief, but also a strange emptiness. The absence of a battle that had consumed our energy for nearly a year. Noah processed the resolution with characteristic thoroughness, creating a document he titled Lessons from Maternal Litigation that analyzed the experience from multiple angles. I glimpsed it once. A meticulous spreadsheet tracking emotional responses, identifying patterns, and extracting practical insights. This was his way of making sense of what had happened, transforming painful experience into structured learning. "I don't think she ever understood me," he commented one evening. Rare introspection from someone who typically avoided discussing emotional matters. Even when she came back, she wasn't looking at me, just what I represented. "That's her loss," I replied gently. "You're extraordinary, Noah. Not just because of what you've built, but because of who you are." He nodded, absorbing this. The company needs to be protected from similar situations in the future. This pragmatic response to trauma became his focus in the following weeks. Noah worked with corporate attorneys to establish an unassailable organizational structure for NeuroNavigator. He created a foundation dedicated to supporting autistic entrepreneurs, transferring a significant portion of his personal wealth into its endowment. "This way, the money helps people like me, regardless of what happens," he explained. "It's statistically improbable that another relative will emerge with claims, but this adds security." The foundation became his passion project, developing grant programs for neurodivergent innovators who lacked access to traditional funding sources. Each recipient received not only financial support, but mentorship from professionals who understood the unique strengths and challenges of autistic entrepreneurs. The selection criteria emphasized authentic, lived experience and innovative problem-solving rather than conventional business metrics. During this period of reconstruction, an unexpected connection emerged. James, Lisa's brother and Noah's uncle, reached out after learning about the court case through media coverage. Living in California with his family, he had maintained sporadic contact over the years, but had never been a significant presence in Noah's life. "I should have been there more," he admitted during our first video call. "I told myself the distance made it difficult, but that's just an excuse. I'd like to know my nephew better, if he's open to it." Unlike Lisa's sudden interest, James made no requests or demands. He simply offered relationship, asking Noah about his work and interests with genuine curiosity. Most importantly, he educated himself about autism before attempting to connect, approaching Noah with respect for his communication style and sensory needs. Noah approached this potential relationship with cautious analysis, as he did all social connections. His behavioral patterns show consistency, he observed after several calls. The probability of genuine interest seems high. Over the following months, James and his family became a welcome presence in our lives. His wife Sarah, a special education teacher, connected easily with Noah through her professional understanding and personal warmth. Their children, Noah's cousins, incorporated his differences into their interactions without judgment, adapting games and conversations to include him comfortably. This expanding family circle coincided with NeuroNavigator's continued growth. The app now served over 1 million users worldwide, with translations in 12 languages and customizations for various cultural contexts. Noah's team had expanded to 30 employees, with neurodivergent individuals represented at every level of the organization. The company's innovative workplace accommodations became a model for the tech industry, demonstrating how environmental and procedural adaptations could unlock extraordinary talent. Major corporations began consulting with NeuroNavigator about implementing similar approaches, creating a secondary revenue stream through corporate training and workplace design. Noah's personal growth matched his professional success. Though still requiring support in many areas of daily living, he developed increasing independence. He learned to drive with accommodations for his sensory processing differences. He moved into a carefully designed apartment in the same building as our home, close enough for support, but separate enough for autonomy. He even began dating another autistic tech professional, their shared neurodivergence, creating a foundation of mutual understanding that made the relationship uniquely comfortable for both. My role evolved accordingly. No longer his primary caregiver, I became something between parent, grandparent, and executive assistant, still involved daily but respecting his growing independence. The financial security from NeuroNavigator's success allowed me to finally address my own health needs and rediscover interests I'd set aside during the intensive years of raising Noah. We established a trust with carefully selected trustees to ensure Noah's continued support should anything happen to me. The legal battle with Lisa had at least clarified one concern that had haunted me for years: Noah's care after I was gone. Now, surrounded by a reliable network of professional and personal supports, his future security seemed assured. As Noah approached his 20th birthday, he received an invitation to deliver the keynote address at the International Conference on Assistive Technology, a prestigious recognition of neuronavigators' impact. Though public speaking remained challenging for him, he had developed strategies to manage such situations when he deemed them important enough to justify the discomfort. I watched from the audience as he took the stage, my heart swelling with a pride so intense it felt physical. The audience fell silent as Noah adjusted the microphone and began speaking in his characteristically direct manner. "Innovation often comes from necessity," he stated. "I created NeuroNavigator because I needed tools that didn't exist. The conventional approach to autism focused on making us fit neurotypical environments. I reversed that equation, creating technology that bridges neurological differences from both directions." He outlined the company's journey and future vision without notes, his exceptional memory serving him perfectly. As he described upcoming features designed to support employment opportunities for autistic individuals, I glimpsed the depth of his mission, not just creating tools, but transforming perceptions of neurodivergent potential. "The most damaging assumption about autism is that difference equals deficit," he continued. "My experience suggests otherwise. Different cognitive processing creates different solutions. NeuroNavigator exists because of autism, not despite it." The standing ovation that followed his speech lasted nearly 2 minutes. Noah tolerated it with growing discomfort, his fingers tapping rhythmically against his leg. A self-regulation technique I recognized from years of observation. As soon as protocol allowed, he left the stage, finding me in the quiet green room we'd arranged as a sensory recovery space. "You were magnificent," I told him as he decompressed with his noise-canceling headphones and weighted blanket. He considered this assessment with his usual literal interpretation. The audience response suggests the message was effectively delivered. That's what matters. 2 weeks after the conference, an unexpected letter arrived. The return address showed Lisa's name. Noah studied the envelope carefully before deciding to open it. Inside was a handwritten note, perhaps the first genuine communication from his mother in over a decade. No demands, no legal threats, no presumptions of entitlement, just an acknowledgement of her failures and the harm she had caused. "I didn't recognize the gift I was given in you," she wrote. "By the time I understood what I'd thrown away, it was too late to reclaim it. I'm sorry for trying to take what I hadn't earned. Your success is entirely your own, and I have no right to any part of it. I don't expect forgiveness or relationship, but I wanted you to know I was wrong. About everything." Noah read the letter multiple times, processing its content with characteristic thoroughness. "Do you think it's sincere?" he asked finally. "It seems so," I replied carefully. "But your feelings about it are what matter most." He considered this. "I don't feel hatred toward her anymore. That's inefficient use of cognitive resources. But trust requires consistent behavior over time. One letter doesn't establish a pattern." His practical wisdom often stunned me. At 20, he had developed an emotional intelligence that was uniquely his own, not following conventional social scripts, but grounded in profound understanding of human patterns and his own internal truth. "What will you do?" I asked. "Nothing immediately," he decided. "I'll store this data point and see if others follow that might establish a trend. Meanwhile, there's work to do." The work continued. NeuroNavigator expanded into educational settings, developing customized tools for neurodivergent students. The foundation funded research into sensory processing innovations. Noah's team pioneered new approaches to accessibility that benefited users far beyond the autism community. Through it all, Noah remained himself. Literal, logical, occasionally frustrating in his directness, but unfailingly authentic. The wealthy tech founder still lined up his silverware with precise angles, still required noise-canceling headphones in crowded environments, still processed emotions through spreadsheets and data analysis. The world had tried to mold him into conventional patterns. His mother had abandoned him for failing to conform, but in staying true to his neurodivergent nature, he had created something revolutionary, not just a successful company, but a vision of inclusion that recognized different minds as valuable precisely because of their differences. Watching him lead a product development meeting one afternoon, confidently directing his diverse team with clear, precise language that accommodated various communication needs, I felt a sense of completion. The frightened 5-year-old watching the window for his mother's return had become a man who had transformed his differences into innovation. The journey had been harder than it should have been, filled with obstacles that no child should face. But he had emerged not merely surviving, but triumphant. Lisa had walked away from the most precious gift life had given her. In doing so, she had missed witnessing one of the most remarkable journeys I'd ever been privileged to share. The justice in that seemed fitting, not as punishment, but as the natural consequence of choices made and unmade, of responsibilities accepted and abdicated. Noah caught me watching him and raised an eyebrow questioningly. I smiled and shook my head slightly, our nonverbal shorthand for nothing urgent. He nodded and returned to his work, secure in the knowledge that unlike his mother, I would always be there, not to control or exploit his success, but to support his continued becoming, whatever form that might take. In the end, the story that began with abandonment had transformed into one of emerging autonomy. The child others had underestimated had created something extraordinary, and I had received the privilege of witnessing it all, one methodical step at a time. I hope this story resonated with some of you who have experienced family betrayal or had to fight for recognition of your true worth. If you've ever stood by someone when others walked away, or been the person who needed that unwavering support, please share your experiences in the comments below. Every like and subscription helps this channel reach others who might need to hear that different doesn't mean less, and that sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. If you found value in Noah's journey, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need this message today. Thank you for listening to our story, and remember, sometimes the most powerful form of justice is simply living well.